Hello everyone and welcome for another How Good Is, where today we're going to talk about Ido Yachi. No, this is different. This is Yachi&Mifuyu. How is it that Yachiyo already got a second dual unit, and why am I talking with a more slow and quiet voice? Well, it's because I got a tooth pulled. On the other hand though, we see that these two are indeed part of the new duo, although when we're going to take a look if this really is a duo or if this is actually something different. But of course, they're going to be Memoria as well, and we're going to need to talk about all of that and evaluate just how good everything is. So if we look over here at the actual wiki page, which, yeah, it does have the information on it, awesome. They are an attacker type character, which basically means that they go unga bunga and just deal damage with their discs to enemies, and most notably blast in this case, and they're not going to worry too much about generating MP with their attacks, which they wouldn't be able to do much anyway because they only have one Excel disc and one charge disc. Now, they do have a personal, and I'm going to get to it later, but let's just remember, yeah, they do of course have a personal, but let's just look at the stats. They have decent HP, it's not that great, but it's decent. Their attack is really good, they have a really good attack, and their defense is also at least somewhat alright. So their defensives are alright, they're not specifically tanky, but they at least survive a lot more than other more squishy characters would. But most importantly, they are really high on the attack, which is what you would expect from someone who is really all about the blast disc unga bunga damage. Now, if we take a look down here to the connect, we see, oh, it gives attack up, of course it does. Then it gives defense, pierce, and dazzle on attack. So if we see defense, pierce, kind of like another damage up or some damage increasing effect, then this is really good. I talked before about how defense pierce is a lot better in PvP in mirrors than it is in PvE, but is still good in PvE as well. And I mean, currently there's 2 EX challenge quests where enemies have like 1 billion defense and they kind of want you to use defense pierce, or you just use 2 Quell Blooms, because Quell Bloom reduces enemy defense by quite a lot, and 2 Quell Blooms are enough to get enemy defense to basically 0. It's 5%, you can't get lower than that, but basically 0. And that works too. Anyway, point is, this is a connect that for mirrors makes it so you're basically one-shotting people, while in PvE it's a nice damage boost on some of the tougher enemies. But even if you are playing against tougher enemies that don't immediately fall over dead when you use an attack on them with defense pierce, then you're at least still dazzling them, and dazzle, or bewitch in English, is one of the best, if not the best, status effect in the game in most cases. So this is a really awesome connect. Keep in mind though that this is not the kind of connect that is doing something that's better than other offensive connects in most cases. You know, like, unless you are fighting something that has quite a lot of defense, most other offensive connects will be better, like those that give blast up, or those that give damage up, or some other damage up effect on top of the attack up, or some others that give what was I talking about, damage up, blast up, something like that. Those kind of effects usually are better on the offensive and crit as well, at least like alongside the attack up, which is what almost every connect has. While on the utility side, the dazzle is amazing, but it's the only thing it does. So if you're looking for this to be more on the utility side or more on the supportive side, then just a dazzle is not going to be enough. You really should play this character basically just as this unga bunga attacker. That's really what this character is all about. So the dazzle is more like a bonus and not something that kind of makes this character. Speaking about that, let's look at the Magia, which, I mean, this is a blast gorilla. You're not going to use this very much, are you? Well, are you? You actually will be using this Magia sometimes, and we'll see later why, but for now, just keep in mind you will actually be using this Magia sometimes. It's an AoE Magia, which is fine, and what it does is it gives attack up to self only. Sad. At least it's 50%, but only to self. That's kind of sad. And it gives defense pierce to self for 60% chance. That's pretty alright, and all for 3 turns, and it restores some MP to self. So does this mean that you maybe should play this in a Magia team if the Magia is quite good for actually dealing damage? Because if you use it multiple times, you're going to be able to get the attack up bonus on yourself, on your next Magia, even for even more damage, and of course you're restoring MP to sort of make it easier to spam more Magia. But that said, I don't think you should play this on a Magia team, because once again we're going to see why you actually get to Magia and why maybe you don't want to play this on an Excel team but actually keep playing on a Blast team. And the Magia 2 is just better at everything, just a little bit, although it does need to bear mentioning that the defense pierce on the Magia 2 is 100% chance, guaranteed. Awesome. Now, why did I say that, oh yeah, you're gonna get to Magia with this character and you might actually be able to use one or two here, right here, but you shouldn't probably play this on an Excel team? It's because you're gonna get to Magia without Excel. How? Well, we have the third character that I've reviewed so far on this channel that has blast salutations. So salutations to all you guys out there who want to blast. You're getting some MP. How much? It's 5 MP for every tile that you hit with blast. For example, if you use a blast disc and you hit 2 enemies with that, you get 5 MP twice. If you hit 3 enemies, it's 5 MP 3 times. Awesome, that's 15 MP. Or if you just hit single targets with your blast discs, it's just 5 MP. But yeah, this means you can get a maximum of 45 MP if you hit 3 targets every single time in a Pillar Blast combo. Of course, if you have bigger enemies like witches, for example, that might have multiple tiles, those still count as individual tiles. So if you have a big witch with like, what direction are the blast discs in, by the way? Okay, they're vertical and then 2 horizontal, okay. So if you have a witch that has like a T shape maybe on the side, and you can actually hit all 3 all the time, you will get 45 MP, awesome. What else do we get? We get a blast up 30%. Isn't it sad how basically every single character in the entire game has a better damage up bonus on their blast discs, like every blast character does, than cool Homura? Isn't that really sad? Anyway, so yeah, it's 30%, which is really good. And what else do we have? So at this point, we're looking at some other stuff that you get for just being an attacker, for example. So yeah, attackers just get evade, attackers just get anti-evade. Most of them do, at least. That's nothing special. However, because they are a tiny bit more defensive focused as well, they get some damage cut and they get some status aim and resistance. That's really good as well. So you don't die immediately, you actually have some defensives. And it is, interesting enough, also anti-charm. Probably because they are basically always holding hands so hard that they can only think about each other, that no one else can charm them. No one else can get between these two. Yes, not even Iroha can get between these two, because the only thing that can get between these two is Mifuyu herself. So by the way, I made a joke earlier about, is this really a duo unit? Well, first of all, there is the active here that gives blast damage up and chance to critical hit self for 3 turns, which is amazing. But yeah, the reason why I made that joke earlier, is this really a dual character, is because basically everything that we see in this entire setup, in all of the stats, in the Spirit Enhancement, Connect, Magia, etc., all of this just looks very much like an upgraded version of Yachiyo. We don't really get much of Mifuyu's playstyle in here at all. I mean, yeah, you have the Dazzle on attack. And I guess the MP restore comes from Mifuyu. So the Dazzle and MP restore, I guess, is from Mifuyu. I don't even think Mifuyu has specifically MP restore, but she's an Excel gorilla, so it makes sense. And apart from that, it's... So a lot of people are joking that this is actually this is not Yachiyo and Mifuyu origin version, but yeah, rather this is Yachiyo Mifuyu version. Something like this. Or you can actually say as well, this is Yachiyo Final Tart version, because she is actually rather similar to Final Tart. She has pretty good HP and defense, but more so focused on attack. Although I don't know the exact stats off the top of my head, but I'm just saying that especially the Spirit Enhancement, though, she's a Blast Gorilla who has Blast MP gain up, like Blast Salutation, exactly 5, like Final Tart does, and has a decent Magia that you will actually get to in longer engagements, but you also do actually have some cool defensive stuff, like a damage cut, like some status aim and resistance, like stats that make it so you don't die immediately, and that's actually really good. That said, a lot of people are usually overvaluing Blast Salutation. Blast Salutation does nothing in mirrors. You're not gonna get to Magia in mirrors. It's not gonna happen. Even if you have this character attack for 5 turns in a row, somehow with a Polar Blast combo, how would anyone even be still alive at that point? It's not gonna happen. In PvE, when you're farming, sometimes when you're farming stages that have like 4 waves, like stages that are a bit longer than usual and have like 4 waves, maybe on the final wave you're gonna get a Magia off with this character and might make the final wave just a tiny bit faster, because of course Magia animations get skipped if you have that setting turned on auto battle, which can speed up farming just a tiny bit. But that's also not something that really matters too much. I mean, it's just auto battle farming. What does it matter if it's a little bit faster? More important though, this is something that if you go into some harder quests, some challenge quests, some EX challenge quests, or some 100 Evils quests, which so far there's only been like once in the what was it, the Mock-You event. That one had 100 Evils quests, and they've not done it again since. But yeah, those quests lasted for like 25 turns or something, and that was fast to do in like 20 to 25 turns, those quests. And if you're playing stages that last for that long, this is absolutely amazing. Like, Blast Salutation gets better every time you actually get to use a Blast Disc and the fight continues. So because if you use a Blast Disc and the fight is over, then this does absolutely nothing. So yeah, keep in mind that this is for very specific kinds of quests, and overall is not as amazing as people might think that it is. So, now that we've seen everything, what can we say, like, in total about this character? Well, we notice one thing. We haven't actually seen everything yet, have we? There's still a personal. What does it do meeting after school? Morale Blast Adept. More blast damage up and blast MP gain up. What I don't like about this, by the way, is that it's blast damage up because you already have a ton of blast damage up in here. If you get to, like, 50% blast damage up already with active running for 3 whole turns, and after that it's still 30%. And if you have this, I also activated, it's a passive. If you have this, you actually get to 85% blast damage up for 3 turns. Where's the attack? Like, you have to actually get some attack from somewhere. So if you run this, you would probably really want to run something like some really high attack up Memoria. Almost even something like a sword, and just try to keep yourself at maximum HP. But just anything that gives a ton of attack would be really awesome. That said, however, despite that, if we just look at the stats, this is amazing. 35% blast damage up and blast MP gain up on top of that, so you actually get to 8 MP blast MP gain up. This is really awesome if you do actually get to play stages that last a bit longer, because if you get stages that last a bit longer, chances also are, because you're using your Magia, you'll get the attack up self buff from the Magia. Maybe other character would use a Magia that gives attack up to everyone, like Manaka for example, and that will help you out even further. And then the blast MP gain up and the blast damage up actually do make quite a bit of a difference and will be really awesome. That said, while this Memoria is really awesome for those, like I said, longer stages, for anything else, it's pretty much just a 35% blast damage up, which is still good, but nothing groundbreaking. Right, this is not something that is better than most other Memoria if you're not able to actually make use of the extra blast MP gain up that's on here, which means if you're playing mirrors or if you're playing shorter quests or just auto battling, then this is just an alright Memoria. But once again, now that we've actually seen really everything this time, what can we say about this character? Really highly focused on attack. So you do absolutely amazing damage with really high blast damage up, with really high attack. Your blast discs hit like a truck. They generate some MP, which gives you late game capabilities, which is not something that Blast usually has. While at the same time, you also have at least a tiny bit of utility with the Dazzle on attack, which sometimes can come in handy. You also have the Defense Pierce, which sometimes can come in handy, so you have some pockets up your sleeve, but you are missing out on some pure like damage output because of that, because like I said, other pure damage connects are probably a little bit better than this. But what you also have is you have some defensives. So if you had like 20 skill points to put into different aspects of your character, and you had like attack and utility and like defense, and you had like 20 skill points to put into these, Yachiyo is like not quite all focused on attack. Let's put like 14 or so in attack, while the other 6 are like spread between like 4 in defense and 2 in utility. Like that's kind of a rating that I would give to this character in that way. That we don't go full super duper attack, but we still have some other stuff in here. So overall, she's a very good balanced character in that way. However, one thing to note, of course, is that she falls into the same category in that sense with everything that I've just described, like Final Tart, for example. However, Final Tart is light type, and light types are usually preferable to one of the lesser types, like water, and also one of the lesser types. The 3 lesser types are aqua, forest, and fire. And usually you don't want to have too many characters of these types, because then, of course, if there is a quest that has, for example, in this case, forest units, you're going to be really, really sad. Light and dark don't have that problem. Neither does Void, but Void also doesn't have a strength, so whatever. But yeah, this is one thing to keep in mind, though, that if you if you don't have any other good character, like this is your only good character, you might run into quests that have forest type units, and you're gonna be a bit sad. But that said, that's basically like the only really big weakness that this unit has. Apart from that, they are very good. They are a very good unit. That might not outshine other characters in some situations, in most situations even, but still play at a really high tier, is what I would say. Okay, now that I've said all of that, we're still Memoria. Are these Memoria that interesting? Well, let's go with this one first. This one gives anti-debuff to self, like it makes you immune to 1 debuff for the next 3 turns. It's terrible. And then we also have this, more than acquaintance, less than a friend, more like a girlfriend. Persist weapon adept, what does this do as a passive? Gives 65% chance to anti-provoke and 30% damage increase. The damage increase is actually really duper duper high. And the anti-provoke is also really nice. This is actually a really awesome Memoria. This is an absolutely amazing Memoria. That is actually really, really good. Although, I mean, it's anti-provoke and it's still just a chance, so if you're fighting anything where the enemy doesn't actually have a provoke, it's only a 30% damage increase. But even so, even if you're just having a 30% damage increase, it's still really amazing. So this is actually a top tier Memoria. It won't always be super duper game winning, but there are situations where it will be game winning and you'll feel it. That said, is this Memoria good enough for you to roll on this specifically for this Memoria? No, no Memoria in this entire game is good enough for me to tell you to roll specifically for a Memoria. Like, if you want nothing else, that's just the way the game works. Don't roll specifically for Memoria. There's also a limited Memoria, so if you don't MLB this right away, you're probably not gonna MLB it for like another year or something. So just don't worry about this. Don't worry about this. But keep in mind that if you are rolling on this gacha for some reason and you do get this Memoria, it's actually really good. So that said, that was all I have to say about that. Poor Mifuyu. She's just basically standing in the background of what is essentially a Yachiyo unit. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, I guess, and I'll see you guys next time.